Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of The Left Wing. I am TJ Whitehead, powers taken, not given. Joined as always by John Cooper of Counterpoint Politics and special guest Off Joe Wagon. How are you doing today, my friend?
Good. How are you doing?
Doing great. Backstage, the three of us are just talking that if you've ever seen Off Joe Wagon's content, I found him on TikTok a long time ago, or he found me. I can't remember. It's been such a long time. But he always had the shades on, and I was telling him how jarring it was to see him without them. And I hadn't really thought about that going in. And it reminded me, so when I first started making content, I had all these ideas of, we're trying to think of like how you're going to present it, what you're going to name it, what you're going to look like and everything. And I had like one of my earliest ideas, like the proto powers taken, not given, was I wanted to call it polarizing politics. And every video I'd be wearing polarized sunglasses as like kind of a nod to like the whole topic. I was like, then I thought, oh man, that might get old wearing the glasses.
It would have gotten very old.
So like just for a C+ joke that I'm making with the polarized glasses and everything, and kind of stick with it. But I enjoy your content, man. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, absolutely. No, thanks for having me. And it's funny you should say that because I think all of us when we start creating and especially if you didn't like intend to do it, like when I started doing this, I had just whatever user bunch of numbers. I didn't have any like specific screen name or anything like that. And I made a video. I didn't expect to do anything, and it kind of blew up. And over the course of a couple of days, I went from no followers to 10,000. I'm like, shit, I need to like brand this pretty soon. So I need to come up with a name. I need to come up with a look. And the look, I was lucky. It's just I just happened to be wearing this with these glasses in the first video. And it was winter or spring or something. It was cold out, so I had a fluorescent green jacket that was just kind of my chore jacket. So I always had that on. So the first couple of videos, it was just happenstance that I had the color. I had the glasses because they were my favorite glasses at the time. And then people were commenting how they liked the vibe or the look of it, aesthetic. So I was like, cool, I'll stick with it. And it's been great. I'm really glad I did, because now when I'm filming and I go back and edit and I fucked something up and I need to I don't have to worry about digging the shirt.
Oh, that's so great.
Or anything like that. I just got to make sure I got the right hat on and it has the right logo. And most of my shirts have one of like 3 or 4 logos on them, so it's super easy to do that. And I'm glad I did that. But yeah, coming up with the names and everything like that, like you're talking like polarized politics and all that sort of thing.
That's smart.
Difficult. And then once you commit to something, you're stuck with it. You can't change it. And so it's like years later, you're like, man, would I have gone with the same thing? I don't know. So you just gotta embrace it.
That would suck if you picked a name that it was like you hated it in the end. Like, I know the Young Turks has kind of fallen from grace lately, but I do think about the Young Turks like, man, is that a name they would have picked like 20 years later? Like, it doesn't have a great connotation. It's a cool sounding name, but like, oh, that's what the Young Turks are. Yikes. I don't like that. And Hugh Jass, one of our loyal commenters, said, "Hey, it's that wagon fella. You got a fan here already. Look at that." So
we should live too. I guess I didn't even realize that.
Oh shit! Yeah, did I not tell you? Surprise! This is a live. We're on live. Yeah, this is.
What are we live on?
YouTube. Okay. And John and I share our Instagrams a lot, and so
I should totally put us live on Instagram.
There you go, John. Yeah, so we do it on YouTube. So while John's doing that, I'll go ahead.
A joint account like a married couple.
No, we don't. We should do that, shouldn't we? We should get it. We actually no, we do. We have a left wing one, but none of us really use it.
Yeah, we don't use it.
We don't use that one. Yeah,
I have a bunch of Let Them Eat Toast accounts on like every platform for my podcast, and I haven't updated any of them in months.
It's understandable. Yeah, the same clothes is a really good idea. That's always good, because sometimes I'll catch something, I'll say, shit, but I've already changed by then, and it's like, I can't really go back and do it. Well, usually the lighting is different, so I can't do it either, but that's kind of fucks it up. But that's we should do a segment sometime. That should be one of our like intros, John. Like, how did you get your username? Because I love those stories. Like, how did you get your username? Off Joe Wagon.
Are you asking now?
Yeah.
Okay. So when I started kind of getting some notoriety, I guess, and I've been fortunate to have some like really committed loyal fans that check my page every single day, interact with all my videos. And so I put out and I asked them, like, hey guys, what do you think my username should be? I gave them some personal information, probably more personal information than I should have put out on the internet at the time, looking back, but whatever. And so like the Jawagon is a play on my name, my first and last name, and I won't get too public with that now. Again, retrospect, but not that it's that hard to find. If anybody's really committed to doing it, it doesn't take that long. But I put that out there, and people kind of came with a bunch of different things. And one person was like, "Paint Jawagon," and I was like, I like it. I like the play on my name and my initials and everything, but you know, I drink a lot. We've got the Sunday Fun Day videos and everything like that, and so it's like off Jawagon, and I'm always going off on random topics because
he drinks a lot of soda.
Tons of soda.
Wise
YouTube.
moderators. That's
yeah,
soda in the can.
Gatorade comes in a can now. Didn't you know that?
Well hydrated. Well,
John, I'm gonna guess your counterpoint name came from like the back and forths you do. Like, is that had you already put?
No. So I think I've said this before on the show. So like when I originally thought of counterpoint, I just like wanted to make content. So like it was originally going to be like a larger brand of like, hey, I'm going to make counterpoint politics, counterpoint movies, counterpoint whatever.
Oh, that's
politics took off, and so that just. It remained counterpoint politics, but maybe one day, TJ, if our dreams do come true, we'll be allowed to talk about other shit.
Yeah. John and I often veer off into like film criticism a lot of time during the show, so who knows? It could happen. My power signal I've given is a quote from Gloria Steinem, and I liked it. But so what I wanted to share, this is kind of an audible being called here. I don't know if you guys have seen this yet. If you have, great. If not, I have. You'll really enjoy this. But this is Tucker Carlson, our friend of the show, Tucker Carlson. He is at Turning Point USA, and he is talking to, you know, the ridiculous chuds that would attend this event, and he's talking about like Trump being the disciplinarian that the country needs, and we lost John. I don't know what happened. We lost John.
I'm still listening. I'll be right there.
Okay, and so
it's Spank Me Daddy.
Yes, that's it. That's it. Yep.
Oh,
yeah.
Man.
So gotta share this with everyone, and I want to get you guys' reaction on this because, bro, what the fuck?
If you allow your 14-year-old to light a joint at the breakfast table, if you allow your hormone-addled 15-year-old daughter to like slam the door of her bedroom and give you the finger, you're going to get more of it. And those kids are going to wind up in rehab. It's not good for you, and it's not good for them. No. There has to be a point at which dad comes home. Yeah, that's right. Dad comes home. And he's pissed. Dad is pissed. He's not vengeful. He loves his children. Disobedient as they may be, he loves them. Because they're his children, they live in his house. But he's very disappointed in their behavior. And he's going to have to let them know. He's going to have to get to your room right now and think about what you did. And when dad gets home, you know what he says? You've been a bad girl. You've been a bad little girl, and you're getting a vigorous spanking right now. And no, it's not going to hurt me more than it hurts you. No, it's not. I'm not going to lie. This is going to hurt you a lot more than it hurts me. And you earned this. You're getting a vigorous spanking because you've been a bad girl.
All right. So, John, had you seen that yet? Had you run across this in your travels?
No, I have not.
All right. So, let's get your reaction. Let's get first timers. I want to hear what you got to say.
Well, TJ, my first reaction is, pretty sure I've seen a couple videos with that plot line.
With these exact words, exactly.
Oh my God. Okay, there's so many levels of disgust to that one clip. So I'm just going to try and rattle it down here. First and the most obvious one, I think, to everyone is you're spanking your 14-year-old daughter. Like he specified. He did specified 14-year-old daughter. If you are spanking your 14-year-old daughter, you're fucked up. You are fucked up. Why did you have to genderize it like that? It's really fucking weird. Go ahead, off to Egg.
I just want to put out, this is the guy who is jerking it to the like purple M&M. So this is what we're working with here, okay?
Ultra Wagon, it's the green M&M.
The green
Thank you
M&M,
very
yes,
much.
yeah.
You got misrepresent Tucker's tastes like that.
Right.
But so like there's that obvious weird connotation. And you actually heard the crowd like when he said that, the crowd's cheering died down.
It did.
They were like, I'm not so sure about this one. Even that crowd. But like even behind that, one of the thoughts I had was, a lot of times people complain about culture war distracting from the real issues. And I think what a lot of people don't understand is that culture war is the real issues. This is a great example. He's giving an analogy that resonated with that base. Like that woman who was like, you saw it in her. She's like, yeah, I wish I could beat the shit out of my kids, and like that idea, that concept of, hey, you need to enforce discipline with physical violence. And it's going to be enjoyable for the person enacting that discipline is fundamental to fascism. It is the driving force behind the ideology that drives so many people to Trump. They don't care about Trump's fucking policies. They care that Trump is going to allow them to enact that sense of violent justice that they so dearly crave. And it kind of starts, like when I hear that, I'm like, well, this is fucked up because I know that corporal punishment is bad. It is harmful to children. It is, like we have facts. We've studied this. We know. But there's still so many people in this country who think that that's just the right way of doing things. And I do think that idea comes before the political policy for most voters, but most Americans. And like that's where you actually have to win the information war on that cultural concept, because if you can just get people to instantly recognize that as child abuse, the entire message falls flat. But for so many Americans, that's just not the case. They recognize it as the right thing to do. And that was my thinking of when I first saw that clip. There's so many thoughts there.
Yeah, I know. How about yours, Dr. Wagon?
Yeah, I actually saw that just shortly, earlier this afternoon, and aside from making my skin literally crawl, it's Tucker Carlson. You expect this kind of shit from him, and in a way, I almost hate to pay attention to it because this is why they say this kind of shit is to get this kind of attention. I feel like a lot of the time, and drive this sort of culture war argument that we shouldn't even be having. Like, that's a statement that should never have been said. That's something that if your uncle said that at Thanksgiving, you'd ask him to leave, probably not so politely, type of shit. And it normalizes it. Like, even us talking about this right now normalizes that this is an acceptable conversation to have in the sphere of politics and just society in general. I do think it was funny though. He's like, your daughter's going to end up in rehab, and like how many of them are Trump's out here like snorting Adderall and shit, and we're worried about the daughter ending up in rehab. But I take it beyond the creepy shit up front. It's this connotation of punishing the enemies, the people who contradict Trump, contradicts the party, I think is really the dangerous underlying messaging here, is because they have been trying to get people more and more comfortable and used to the rhetoric of, if you disagree with me, if you disagree with my politics, I can personally attack you, and I should be able to use my powers in government to deliver retribution to my detractors. And this is that same sort of thing, is Trump is the authoritarian figure, and his detractors need to be punished, need to be reprimanded. And we're it. They're talking about us specifically, like all three of us here. And that is the incredibly dangerous rhetoric that I really think gets kind of lost in just the batshit stuff that they're saying. And I think that they want you to focus on it's creepy, kind of perverted aspect of it, and not the fact that they're literally talking about silencing anybody who does not toe the line.
Yeah. The more salacious element of it does catch more interest and get more people talking about it.
Hold on. I want to say, I'm not so sure I agree with that framing. I don't think it's like, oh, they're saying it like this because it's salacious and will distract people from the real message here. I think the messages are very much
okay.
I think they are the same thing. I think that the thing that causes the sexual fetish of abusing your 14-year-old daughter and the fascist ideology it's all coming from the same stream here.
I absolutely agree, and I'm not saying it like it's this coordinated, like logical effort. I'm saying that that's what all of us get caught up on. That's the first like guttural reaction is, ew, you're talking about spanking a 14-year-old and insinuating that you're going to enjoy inflicting pain that feels very sexual and sexually abusive just in the way it was described. And you stop there because it's cringe, and you don't get down to that lower layer. Really what they're suggesting is they want supreme authority and to punish all of us for not getting on board with that.
Yeah. What I was gonna say is that the salacious elements are the ones that are spread quicker because they're more easily accessible and more easily understandable for people. They see a grown man up there saying, "I'm going to spank you because you've been a bad girl," and he's at a political conference, and the analogy he's talking about his teenage daughter. That is weird. That is very strange. However, with the overtly fascist elements and how they have this libidinal urge to inflict violence upon people who disagree with them politically, or people of the wrong skin color or wrong religion. They're also very honest about that. Like they don't try. I say this all the time about how with Republicans now, it's just spite-based politics. It's the whole thing is just based on, and how many times do you see when they're "fuck your feelings" flags and just saying that, oh, I can't wait to see. I always say this, like, if it's November 6th or 8th or 10th or whenever we know who the next president is going to be, and Kamala Harris wins, I'm gonna breathe a sigh of relief, and then I'm gonna get back to work talking about politics. Republicans, if Trump wins, they're going to throw a fucking party. They are going to throw a party. They're going to be harassing people. They're going to be yelling at folks. And that's the difference between the two of us. The two.
Yeah, I feel like Trump supporters are kind of like, Philadelphia when the Eagles won the Super Bowl.
Yeah. Right, John?
If they won, they're going to riot, destroy the city.
A lot of them were Trump
They're going to riot, destroy the city. No matter what, they're just going to fuck shit up. Like, there's no two ways about that. And I mean, but that's really what it is it's sports politics for them at this point. They are obsessed with their team, and it's weird. It is so fucking weird.
Yeah. It's super bizarre, and it's the rage can only go so many places, and they're finding a way to direct it. And also, like, you guys are absolutely correct. Everything you mentioned with his weird ass analogy there. And what I hate about stuff like this is, I hate when, all bad points kind of are this way, where they start off with a twinge of truth, where, discipline is important for people, for children, for society. You should have limits on yourself. You shouldn't allow people to do whatever they want. You have to have rules and everything. That's fine. And even in the analogy, having like the dad as the general disciplinarian, I get that too, honestly. I've been in that position where it's like, okay, but then immediately off the rails to a weird, like, violence fetish, not even against women, just against girls in this situation, that it's all about punishing these girls, like, from start to finish. Like you said, John, he did not need to genderize the child in this scenario. He could have just said, when your kids are acting up, your dad comes home, dad punishes the kids. We wouldn't even be talking about it.
And in any other situation, in most other situations, he would have defaulted to son.
You're right. You're right.
No, if he's going
to
default to a gender just like off the cuff, it's probably going to be a boy.
That's a good point.
Like, I do it too. I'm a dude. I subconsciously will just picture a man more often than I'll picture a woman when I'm creating a character.
That's true.
I can't tell you how often. Oh, sorry, but how often?
Go ahead.
I was just doing it today, and for a video I'm posting tomorrow, I was talking about like having a fishing tournament. I'm like, if you said for controlling an invasive carp species here in Minnesota, and I was like, if you had a fishing tournament and you like said that there was just a no limit thing on this, you would have and said that the guy who caught the most fish would get a trophy and his name in the paper. And then I was like, okay. And then I tried to refilm that to say a person who caught the most women French too. I can't I'm not gonna just go assume or genderize like that. It took me 4 times to get it right, and you know it's like it's that conscious just because it's baked so deeply into. You're right. You automatically assume genderize things like that, and even we who are trying to be conscious about that do it as well. So I totally agree. Way like daughter and teenage daughter. And using the word daddy, or you've been a bad girl.
Did he say that? Oh yeah, you've been a bad girl. Did he say daddy? Did he
no,
say
he
that?
didn't. He said dad comes home and dad is very disappointed in you. And you've been a bad girl. He said it twice. He said you have been a bad girl twice. I wrote it down. He said it because you're right, John. The first time he said it, the crowd clapped and they went. You kind of said, they laughed because they thought it was a joke. He was like, wait. Then he said it again. No, he meant business. Like he actually meant what he said. And that is an excellent point about how he genderized. Echo. I heard genderizing the child and that he made it a female. How you got to kind of go out of your way to do that because all of us default to male whenever we're creating a character out of a whole cloth like that. And I was thinking about this when you said it, John. We were actually taught to. I remember in English class as a kid learning that if you are just giving a fictional person that you don't know anything about, that you should default to he. I mean, I did go to school I did go to school 1,000
That's how it
years
works
ago.
in other languages. Like in romance languages, if you aren't aware of the gender of the person, you default to male, masculine, L instead of whatever the fuck. It's been a while since French class in high school.
Or how English is, and I'm like, we don't gender a fucking table, so it can't be that difficult.
Listen.
Tables. It's just a fucking table.
All right, man. I'm so glad you guys said this, and I did not plan to go into a conversation about romance languages. That was not on the agenda for the day, but here we fucking are. But it's that's so true. I talk about this a lot. That with it's actually weird, John, that they default straight to male because everything else has a gender. Like, why would a fictional person have to have that one? But people say this a lot, that English is the most complicated language. No, it's not. It is not. Like, English is a very easy language to learn. You know how you know it? Because billions of people speak it. Okay, if it was so hard to learn, people wouldn't speak. That's actually the best metric you can tell of how complex a language is how many people speak it. Because Navajo could never be the lingua franca of planet Earth because it's too complex. Like, adults couldn't learn it. But English is pretty simple to learn. Go ahead.
All right. Just to play devil's advocate there.
Sure.
Billions of people speak Chinese too, and that seems complicated as fuck. You know?
Well,
that's a padding the stats thing. It's not the language spread.
They were born.
Speaking the language.
John's correct. John is correct. Yeah, because if Chinese was spoken all around the world, they would. But since it's spoken mainly in China, but it's lingua francas are pretty difficult to come by. Some don't work, and English happens to. And English is very malleable. It's good at incorporating other languages and putting it into theirs. The tenses are pretty simple to figure out. But English is not that bad. People shit on it all the time, but
it is good for the same reasons it is bad. The
exactly.
thing that makes it so easy to be a universal language, it is a fucking Frankenstein of 3 different languages. Like fucking William the Conqueror came into France and just commingled the languages, and German and the original English and French, and they all just fucking came together. And so many people have a lot of fucking same words in their language, or they sound the same because it's just an amalgamation. It's like the fucking Catholicism of languages.
The Catholicism of languages.
It just keeps taking from everyone else so that everyone joins their thing. And that's why it's spoken by so many people. That's also why it's so fucking insane to actually learn all of it, because so many things are just contradictory in their structure because they come from different languages.
It's also spoken by so many people because it was the language that the most successful imperial nation in history spoke when they were out colonizing the entire fucking world.
Yeah,
so that's a little bit to do with it too.
Yeah, it's like this, much like Catholicism, kind of rolls along exactly like that. And so what John was talking about with the Norman conquest, and so English has a strong Latin influence because of what John was talking about when we had the French injected into the language back in the 11th century. And Spanish is kind of similar too, in a way that I remember seeing that I think it's like 15% of Spanish words are Arabic words. And that's because during the spread of Islam, when Islam spread across North Africa, it ended up spreading into Spain, like the conquerors that moved up from Morocco into Spain. And for a long time, southern Spain was Muslim controlled, and until like the 8th century, when the Battle of Tours, I think, is when it happened, and then the Spaniards took it back over, but the word stayed, and so there's a lot of overlap between languages there. But language is fun, John. That's our next project, language channel. We're gonna start talking about linguistics,
languages.
counterpoint languages. I love it. I love it so much. So,
Do either of you speak any other languages?
nope.
Yo aprendo español un poquito.
Right there. Just mansplaining.
Yep, we're gonna go over. Yep.
To them,
We're going to bring in native speakers and just tell them they're wrong about
Tell
it.
them they're wrong about it all. I said, nope. Sorry. This here book tells me that you've got this completely incorrect here. No, but studying language is really fun. I started with this studying English and everything, and finding the differences between English and other Indo-European languages. And there's some interesting ones, like there's no meaningless do in a lot of languages. Like, in English you would say, fuck, what are we doing here? We're talking about politics. All right, so I just realized. So with Tucker Carlson, one of you guys mentioned about culture and how this is a cultural issue and how the culture, they get fired up, which is really interesting because even they were weirded out kind of in the middle of his thing here. But I wrote down that politics is downstream from culture, and it's completely true. Did you guys see that? I can't remember who did it. I want to say Wall Street Journal, but I don't think it was them. They asked people just questions about policies, but didn't tell. You guys saw that?
I threads this but right before we came
God
on.
damn.
It's on. I have it right here. I'll share the screen, but yeah, continue explaining.
Yeah, so what they did is they asked people a bunch of different policies and say, do you like this policy? Do you dislike this policy? But they didn't assign any names to it. And see, John's pulling up right here. But they didn't assign any names to it. Yeah.
So this was the support for all of Harris's policy positions. Almost all of them have majority support. And Trump's line was kind of like 50-50.
Yeah. And that just... when I saw that, I just shook my head. I really just shook my head. I wasn't surprised, but it is a cultural thing. Yesterday, in fact, we'll go on later today about how Harris is losing independents in some swing states, and they're saying that she's too liberal. And I said, by too liberal, they just mean she's too female. And people have
too Indian.
Yeah, exactly. And Trump fits into the main divide. Well, the main divide in this election seems to be men and women. The greatest gap. Men are voting for Trump at 56-40, and Harris is like the exact same for women on the other side. More women in, but it's the college education is a huge line of demarcation. If you went to college, you are definitely supporting Harris. If you didn't, you're more likely to support Trump. And education is a big part of it too, but culture is just as big. Like going to college is about a lot more than just learning what you learn in class. It's even more than networking. College is where you learn the rules for polite society and professional society. And this is how you're supposed to act. This is how you behave. This is how you speak. These are the words you can't say. These are the cultural rules of the middle class and the upper class. And if you don't learn those rules and you're not familiar with that culture, people going off and rambling on this nerd shit, it's just going to sound really boring and condescending to you. And Trump, as rude as he is like, well, he's not being rude to me. He's actually speaking my exact language. So that's something that problem is a lot more difficult to solve. It's kind of like with civil rights. We have the laws on the books, but all right, you can't legally segregate, but you can still be an asshole to black people. Can't stop you from doing that. So the culture is a lot more difficult to turn around than the actual politics.
I actually disagree with that. I think it's a lot easier to solve because it's hard to explain policy and convince people. I swear to God, if Democrats just put out a normal person, they would destroy Trump. Like if they stopped the focus groups, if they stopped trying to message specifically to this group of people and just had someone who believed what they say, Bernie, and we've said this, Bernie would fucking smack Trump down because when Bernie talks, you believe that Bernie believes what he's saying. When Kamala Harris talks, I don't believe she believes what she's saying. I don't even know what she fucking believes. And I'm voting for her. You know,
Yeah.
like, because I know what Trump believes, you know, and I don't believe that. But I think it's a lot easier to get people to like a person than it is to get people to like a political policy on taxes.
I wanna agree with all of this. I want to go back a little bit to the point where we were talking about presenting policy without a political or a political party attached to it, and most people agree with that. Are you guys familiar with John Russell?
I don't think so.
The name sounds familiar.
He spoke at the DNC. He was the content creator who spoke at the DNC. He's been on my podcast. He does incredible union work, like labor. But he's been going around with a More Perfect Union. He's been collaborating with them.
Mhm.
And he's going to these Trump rallies. And, you know, normally when you see a progressive going to a Trump rally, it's to go make a bunch of Trumpers look like fucking morons because it's
it's too easy. It's too easy.
But he has gone and done that exact same thing, but not with that intent. And he's been going and doing that exact same thing. Like, do you think that billionaires are getting away and exploiting the working class? And they're like, fuck yeah, they are. Are they sending jobs overseas? And like, should they? Yeah, fuck yeah, they are. And like, do you think that we should be passing laws to protect this? And you just start going on with progressive policies, and they agree with every single one of them. He's like, what if I tell you that that's the policy that the Democratic Party is putting forward, or Kamala Harris is putting forward, or this particular candidate is putting forward? And they're like, oh, well, you know, maybe they do have some good points. And I respect the hell out of him for doing that, because I can't bring myself to rise above the petty when it comes to these people. But it's true. And being able to communicate that is really important, which the Democratic Party blocking sucks at. Like, messaging from the Democratic Party is horrible. And to your point, they focus so much on focus groups and on moderates and what they think, the people they think they need to win an election. And they just abandon everybody that they actually need to win an election. And everything starts to sound disingenuous or not genuine because, you know, progressives, they've been ignoring progressives, just taking their votes for granted for decades. Obviously with like Bernie Sanders and the Hillary Clinton campaign, and repeatedly shitting on them and then blaming them for losing the election when Bernie voters voted at a higher rate for Hillary than Hillary voters voted for Obama back when she ran against him in the primary. It's just, and the fact that the Democratic Party cannot, again, embrace that and just run a normalish person, I just can't agree with that more. And I think that really exemplifies that.
Yeah. I think that's. Oh, go ahead, TJ.
I was gonna say, but I think the problem's deeper than running just a normal person, though. I mean, just running a normal person, because it's like we talked about a couple episodes ago, John, that I told the story about, you know, when I was in my 20s and I was just hanging out at this bar waiting for some friends, and I struck up a conversation with this 65-year-old guy, and I said the exact same thing. Hey, you know, don't you think that your boss is taking too much from the workers? Don't you think that the rich are getting richer, the poor are getting poorer? Shouldn't we have some policies to, you know, reverse this trend, and that the little guy is not getting a fair shot in the United States? Like, all the same shit, then policies, but it always comes back to something ridiculous, like, you know, trans people in schools. Like, that's what really lights their engines. And so I do think that it's possible if we run a more normal person. We have been advocating this for a long time, but normal people don't tend to be politicians. It's just like, I don't know, it's like some sort of you know, dividing line that stops it from happening. And that could work. Like, if just say, like we always say, if Jon Stewart ran for president, he'd run away with it. He'd completely crush it. And we could get, you know, support behind that, but it wouldn't, I don't think, change. It would still be a long time before the cultural change actually hit in the nation, where it wasn't just, I'm attracted because this person seems cool. It's, I'm going to change how I actually view reality. That's going to take a long time.
Yeah,
It takes a long time.
Oh, sorry.
It takes a long time, but I mean, look at what Trump has been able to do in 8 years. Which 8 years, yeah, it's a long time, but it's not a long time, right? And Trump has reshaped the entire Republican Party in his image, and it didn't take that long, because when you have a figurehead like that to lead, people will follow. And that's why, like, I've talked about this before, but like, people like us, like, that look like we could be one of them, You know,
well, two of us.
Well, two of us. You look well, TJ. You know how to talk, right? You could.
Yeah, I know, right? I speak the language. Yeah.
but it's why it's important. I find it important. And the Russell guy that he was mentioning, he's got a mullet. Like we all look like we could be one of them, and it's very important for them to hear these things coming from us. Like I made like a trans rights video the other day, and like someone like reached out to me like thank you so much for making this, and I was like, honestly, this was not a very high effort video. I didn't think it was particularly that good. And they're like, no, but like coming from someone who looks and sounds like you is a hell of a lot of makes a hell of a lot of difference to people. And like, it's true, you know, and unfortunately, I mean, Kamala could be, I swear to God, Kamala could be that. If Kamala wanted to, obviously she's, you know, a woman and a different race, and that hurts, but she could be, I've seen her be a normal person. Tim Walz obviously
is that person. Yeah.
But like they reject him. They put him in the locker and they don't let him out.
That's what I wanted to point out, though, was like running a normal person. You're saying that it doesn't take that, but Tim Walz is the proof. Tim Walz is the case study. You put Tim Walz out there, and the effort they're putting in to try to hate him, and they still can. I'm from Minnesota. Like, he is my governor currently. I voted for him. I have met the man in person. He is genuinely, like, if you're being honest with yourself, he is unhateable. Like, he's such a genuine dude. He's not wealthy by any means. I mean, I think he's got like a net worth of probably less than me, if I'm being honest, and I'm not wealthy in the slightest. And he's genuine, and he's there, and he's rural. He hunts, he fishes, he drives around as 72 International Scout and works on that, and does, you know, YouTube videos on how to fix shit and stuff like that. He's a real person, and it resonates so well with, I mean, it's obviously resonated. He's insanely popular here in Minnesota, and he went from being
a red state, which is a fairly red state. Like, it's not.
I thought it's a blue state. It's a blue state.
It's a blue state, but it is a rural working class. It is not a coastal state that is always going to go blue. You know.
But I want to be very clear. We are the blue state, like not California, not New York. The only state that didn't vote for Ronald Reagan.
Oh, really? Minnesota. Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's an interesting map.
It helped that Mondale, who was one of our senators, was running for president. But yeah, we were the only state in 1984 that did not vote for Ronald Reagan. We didn't vote for Ronald Reagan in 80. We have not voted red in probably as long or longer than Texas hasn't voted blue. Well, yeah, because I think the last time we might have voted blue was 60 or 72 with Nixon, because every state voted for Nixon.
Yeah, that's say what?
Which is crazy to me that Nixon
that Nixon was so fucking popular. Yeah. The Waltz is a good example. John and I talked about last week how upset we were that you can see now. Once again, this is correlation, which is not always causation, but you can see when Kamala Harris first burst onto the scene, everyone's kind of nervous. They didn't know if she could actually. And look, full props to her.
When she first came out, personally.
You what?
I thought she was a bad choice when they first chose her. Like, personally.
So she was the only choice the way I saw it. I didn't think there was anyone else who anything else would have seemed. Well, it doesn't matter, but I thought that it was pretty, you know, a lot of precarity on how this is going to work, and she righted the ship quickly, and she knocked it out of the park. And then she kept rising. She picks Tim Walz. Tim Walz comes out acting, you know, normal, calling JD Vance weird, swearing on stage and shit, keeps getting higher and higher. And then something weird happened. They just locked Tim Walz in a room, and you didn't see him until the vice presidential debate. And she kind of stalled it. Now, maybe she would have stalled anyway. Fair enough. I don't know. You know, it's a tautological statement. But it's just, I don't know why they locked away Tim Walz when people just like him more and more the more they see him, and how just normal and affable and like non-hateable is a great way to describe it, is that you could disagree with all of Tim. That's what we kind of, well, actually, no, that's not true. Well, a lot of people hate us, but, you know, normal folks, like people not on the internet, when you're talking to them, because like when John said, like, I know how to talk to the conservatives, it's true. Like, I know how to talk to them, and you can get them on your side quite easily. And even when they disagree with everything you have to say, if you're likable, you can get pretty far. And Tim Walz is a good example of that. I wish that, you know, we had more Tim Walzes out there.
Before we jump to our next topic, There have been a lot of good comments, and I don't want to say that some of the other comments weren't as good as this one, but this from Clint Boggs. So you voted for walls, but you don't want a wall.
Nice.
Clint, blink twice if you're a joke. I'm like 50-50. Clint Boggs is a joke account that he's trolling us. He isn't a real person. He's pretending to be a conservative. I just.
I have
so
no
good.
idea here, but it's funny because I did a video when Walls was announced as VP, and I made a joke about, you know, like you can't not vote. I don't even remember what the joke was, but it was basically saying that like it was when what's her name on Fox News was like Milwaukee, Minnesota, and I was like, Tim Walz is out here deporting entire fucking cities. You know, like that's how. Like,
I think I saw that video. I think I saw that one. Yeah, I think I saw that. That was good.
And like they love Walls, and his name is fucking Walls. So I don't know if he's referring to that or I'm just being conceited here. But yeah, no, I've definitely made Walls and Walls jokes for.
Oh boy. Yeah, it's good stuff. Yeah, so that was an unplanned topic. See, these things happen all the time.
That was a good topic. That was a good one.
Point, I do want to say about Minnesota, like I cut you off and said like we're very blue, but we have population centers that are very blue, but we're obviously a big state with a lot of rural area, and it's like any other big state with a lot of rural area. Like my area is red. I've got a Republican congressman. I'm working very hard to not have a Republican congressman after November, and I'm hoping. But you know, like you get out into greater Minnesota and it is very red. That is an excellent point. And you hear people talk shit about Tim Walz out here, and everything they have to say is he let Minneapolis burn, which is bullshit. And they're the same people who are like, you're going to Minneapolis, well, you better put on your bulletproof vest and, you know, don't get out of your car and pack a Glock and your 12 gauge. And I'm like, have you like been there? It's not that. I've been to some of the shadiest parts of Minneapolis. It's not that scary, man. Like, and aren't you the I won't live in fear people? And you're
right. Yes.
It's the weirdest thing. They do it all the time, and it's so funny. Like as someone who lives in Philadelphia, one of the cities that like they always say, I'm just like, I'm incredibly safe. Like I feel way less safe like out in the fucking like woods than I do in Philadelphia. Like there's bad areas, don't get me wrong, but you have to be an idiot to just like get killed here. Like it's not how it works.
Yeah, it is great that the a prominent tent pole of conservative thought is being terrified of cities. Just living, just cowering and pissing your pants at the thought of walking through an urban population. We should use it against them. Yeah, I live in a city, not like you pussies. I live in a city and I'm strong. And you're a fucking coward, living in the sticks somewhere like it's 1858. So yeah, don't mess with me. I think we should do that.
I can't push that narrative, obviously. But yeah, no, I totally agree. I think it's funny because they're scared every time. It doesn't even matter the city. They're always scared of any city. It's just if it has more than like 6 buildings that have more than 10 floors, they're horrified of it. They're horrified of
get out of there.
Yeah.
Horrified of if a man is wearing a dress, that's really scary for them.
Super scary.
They're horrified if a person identifies as a gender that they don't understand. That's really horrifying for them. They're incredibly horrified of anything slightly browner than me, which is I'm very white.
Yeah, you really want to strike fear into their hearts. Mention a college professor. That's really going to get them terrified. They are going to, that is going to, wow, they're going to hate that. It's funny you mentioned it's any city because I live in Indianapolis, and I was just thinking that's not one of the cities they talk about, and the scary cities like Philadelphia or Chicago, or whatever. But that's national politics. Statewide, people in Indiana terrified of Indianapolis. Like, oh my God, the city, the terrifying, scary city with all the dark-skinned people. Are you serious? Yeah, and it's just like, they just they're cowards. A lot of them.
They literally call Minneapolis Murderapolis. We're not even like a top 20 most dangerous city.
All of the top 20 most dangerous cities are like the red state cities, like fucking like Nashville.
It's St. Louis, Jacksonville, it's always like that. It's funny with I remember doing a video a long time ago. It was about the, poorly run Democrat cities and everything and the crime and all that. And I pointed out how they don't bring up certain cities. It's only the same ones over and over again. And I was saying that, they say Chicago like it's Mogadishu or something. Like Chicago is just like dead bodies all over the place. And I say, I live in Indianapolis. And at the time, it's not the same this year, I checked, but 2 years ago, I think the murder rate in Chicago was 18.2 per 100,000 or something. And Indianapolis was 17.2. I've never heard anyone mention Indianapolis. And I wonder why that is. I wonder what's going on there. Yeah, we all kind of know what's up.
And you notice, because you point that, they always say blue cities, but they never specify the state. And then they always bring up like New Orleans and, Chicago is obviously in Illinois and that's blue, but they talk a lot about, blue cities. It's like every fucking city's blue, motherfucker.
Every city is blue.
There's no red cities out there. If you've got more than, 10,000 people in a place, it's not going to be red. It just doesn't happen. And when they start picking on that kind of stuff, they have to specify blue cities. But it's like, what state are they in? And why is it so dangerous? And is this state being starved by the red state politics or the red state policies that they have to abide by and deal with? That chokes them. And that's like New Orleans is a great example of that. Obviously a blue city in a red state that suffers immensely because of the state politics, among other things. But
yeah, in that same video, I made this point where I looked up. There was this a list of at the top site, every city over 500,000 people, and you had to go through like 38 cities before you found a red one or something like there. And for those of you wondering, well, why is that? Why are cities blue? Here's why cities are blue. Cities are the economic.
They got all the fucking black people who.
Welfare,
right?
It's the welfare, right?
Why,
yeah.
Right?
So cities are the economic engines of the states and the regions. All the money that's made for that state, for that region, for that area is going to be powered by the city. All the business takes place there. The manufacturing takes place there. The networking, the travel, the center of commerce, and politics are all going to be in cities. So when that happens, you're going to attract people from all around the state and all around the region to come be employed there. Those people are not going to be the same. Those people are not going to be, from the middle of Possum Grape, Arkansas, like the same group of people that are always around and that have the same religion, the same background, the same culture. And when you have differing groups of people from all around the region, the country, or even the world, you're going to have to find a way to work together with them. And the Republican Party is set up to appeal to one particular type of person, which is a white conservative Christian. And if you're not that person, that's not the party for you. So all the people who are around trying to get something done in the city or working together have no choice, literally, than to be Democrats. Also, the infrastructure that's necessary to power a city is going to be funded by Democrats and not Republicans. Like a red large city is almost impossible. Yeah. It's very difficult to find one for that reason. And since most crime is proximity crime, the highest numbers of crime is going to be where the people are closely put together. Now, interestingly enough,
just in general, but rural areas per 100,000 is always higher in rural areas.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, in rural areas, the crime rate is almost always higher. The cities are actually a lot safer than a lot of these places, but human beings our brains weren't set up to think of per capita stats. It just wasn't like you were set up. Your brain evolved to hide from lions in the African savannah, dig up the root vegetable or two to keep you alive for that day. You never had to think about 10,000 of anything. So whenever people run across this complex math of per capita stats, they can't do it. They're like, oh, the city has 500 murders, and I can't believe that number is so high. And they don't think about the fact that your tiny town of 100 had per capita more murders than that. So I don't know. It's just it's kind of sad to see. I'm disappointed in people.
Ben asks, "Isn't Miami a red city?" And
I'd have a hard time believing Miami's a red city. That's yeah.
Miami-Dade, like that's like what they're always counting Miami-Dade in Florida.
Miami-Dade is what made Florida a swing state for so long.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And also used to live in Miami, got lots of experience there. Miami-Dade, very blue. The only thing that has always fucked with me about South Florida politics is Cubans tend to be very conservative, and it is frustrating, like so frustrating, because I'm like, you realize to the Republicans, you are water Mexicans. Like if they could build a floating wall to keep you out, they would. They hate you. They have a dry land policy. If they catch you, your ankle's still in the water, they ship you right back to Cuba. They hate you that much. And you are voting for them. They tend to vote more conservative because they are that scared of the word communism. It is the most effective use of Red Scare McCarthyism that I have ever seen in my life. And it is frustrating.
It's also, they're the descendants of people that's like, oh yeah, Castro, freed my family slaves. And so they passed that down and it's not going to be appealing. So I found the chart I was talking about from earlier. These are the mayors of America's largest cities. And so I'm going to go down to the 500,000 mark right here. So going from here, let's see how many red mayors are in cities with over 500,000 people. We have 2, 3, 4, 5. And where did it go down to the 500,000 mark? That is down to, there's roughly 40 cities with a population over 500,000. 5 of them have red mayors. Now that doesn't mean the city council is red, but just that's how difficult it is for Republicans to get elected in these places because large populations are not bastions of Republican thought.
And TJ, Republicans hate when I point that out to them. They despise it because in their mind it's like, oh well, we're the party of fiscal responsibility. We're the economics party. It's like, bro, all of the blue states make all the money. Bro.
All the money.
All of the city out, and in every red state, who makes the most money? It's the fucking cities. And they're like, well, of course it's the cities. Like you think that just fucking happens naturally? Yeah. In their mind, it's just like, oh yeah, cities are cheating. It's like, no, they work that they are democratic because those policies work in order to manage so many differing people. You need public infrastructure in order to maximize their economic output. You just need it. And they just don't understand. They genuinely think it's just because of the black people who want the welfare. It breaks their brain when you point out that is not the fucking case. It's very frustrating to have that conversation.
Also, red states get the most welfare.
They do.
White conservatives white conservative non-college age or non-college educated men collect the most welfare, just period. And that's the same demographic that votes Republican. And you point that out to them, like, and just being rural in general, like you can't live in a rural community without getting welfare from the cities in your state. Like all of the infrastructure that comes to even like places where I live, you don't get, roads built and internet put in and power lines put up without it being subsidized by population centers that you don't live in. Like you cannot provide rural infrastructure on our property tax dollars. It's not going to happen.
And interestingly enough, the same thing applies to suburbs. The exact same thing he said. Suburbs cost way more money than they're worth. And so when people like to look down on people living in the inner city, oh, look how the government subsidies and the welfare, they say your entire existence is government subsidized if you live in the suburbs. Like just like he was talking about. The roads, keep the roads maintained to get there, the infrastructure for the power, internet, emergency services. It is a huge net drain on the city.
Not to mention, TJ, how much we fuck up our cities to provide access to the people living in the suburbs.
Yeah.
Like there's so many cases in Philadelphia alone where it's just like, oh, why is it like this? Oh, why is there this giant fucking highway in the middle of the city? Oh, because if we don't have that, the people in the suburbs can't get in. So what? Fuck you. We don't need you. We don't need the people in the suburbs. We are economically sufficient. They need us. And yet we need to bulldoze our fucking neighborhoods so that we can build a fucking Sixers arena in the middle of the city. Go fuck yourself. It pisses me off so much.
It's so frustrating, man. And here's the thing, like it would be bearable if people who lived in rural areas in the suburbs showed some goddamn gratitude. Like that's really what it would be. And they never do. They just show nothing but disdain. Yeah.
And I grew up in the suburbs. I have a transplant.
Say what?
I said, I'm right here, motherfucker.
Oh, okay, well, it's like, and you can attest to how grateful people in the sticks are. Yeah, we all love it.
Yeah, no, it's true. It is true. It is genuinely painful to see people bitch about it out here, and farmers too. Like and don't get me wrong, like I'm not shitting on the farmers provide the most indispensable service we have in a civilized society, in an industrialized society. But they're also the most subsidized industry on the planet. Like the agriculture industry is what a welfare state looks like, right?
Yes,
like And to have all these people like they need to bootstrap their way to the top. I'm like, motherfucker, you get a check for not planting this field this year. You have price floors put in. If grain wasn't subsidized, if grain and livestock agriculture wasn't subsidized, a pound of burger would cost $30. That's how much we subsidize the agriculture industry. And you really want to see them, like, you want to see free market capitalism at work, cut ag subsidies, and just suck for all of us, because that's what levels out consumer prices, right? That's why we can afford food and have affordable food. And it's a good thing that these are subsidized. It's bad how we subsidize them. We subsidize them super inefficiently and obviously to give the most money to the people who need it the least. But the subsidies are good. It's so frustrating that the people getting the subsidies think that they somehow deserve those handouts, that welfare, and then sit there and talk about, the welfare queen in the city with her Obama phone. That shit is just.
I think there's a point, like, I'm just trying to put myself in their shoes, and I'm just like, I think when they think of the bad kind of welfare, it's the kind of welfare that prevents their Darwinistic view of the world. Because if you're receiving subsidies that are just taking you from, okay, I'm surviving, to, okay, I'm much richer now, you could live without those subsidies, and that farmer would probably still be able to turn a profit. But the person who's mooching off the welfare, the single mother in the city, without the subsidy, she's going to die. So, like, that's a moocher. That's the bad kind of it. And that makes no sense to me, but I feel like that's probably the way they view that. It's like, oh, that's not real welfare.
And maybe, but the person who coined the term welfare queen, right, was devastating to the farming industry. Like, but my family farm, or my family's farm, it was before I was born, but Midwest dairy was decimated by Reagan's policies, right? It was the biggest bankruptcy of family farms since the Great Depression under Reagan. And that's really the case. Is it is a do or die. A family farm can't survive by itself without subsidies. They are the exact same as the person who can't feed their children without food stamps. And food stamps also pay the farmers to do the farming. Like they're mad about the programs. That's a farm bill program. Like, that is part of how they make sure that farmers have a market. The government pays for the food from the farmer to feed the person who needs help feeding their family on food stamps. And it's just the cognitive dissonance is painful, and more painful when you see it up close.
I disagree, John, but slightly, but just on how you're approaching it. Like, I don't think they're looking at it as in, I can survive with this money and they can't survive with the money. I think that goes back to the racism thing. They're saying, well, yeah, I get subsidies, but at least I'm working. Those folks aren't working. That's probably what it is that they think, black person on welfare, that they're sitting around playing PlayStation all day. That's generally what they think. They don't realize that.
That's what I'm doing. I don't have welfare. I have a job. I have an email job. So
but yeah, they genuinely believe that most people receiving government assistance, or most of a certain type of person receiving government assistance, isn't working at all. They're just literally mooching on eating the government cheese. The Obama phone, that was such a good callback. I like that, because even when people were talking about the Obama phone, I remember there's this hilarious Fox News graphic from that era where it shows all the stuff your average person on welfare has. And it says your average person on welfare has a phone, your average person on welfare has a television, average person has a refrigerator. It's like these are optional items to have in the modern society. Like you can actually survive and operate in the 2000s without this shit. Acting like it's just
refrigerator, yeah.
yeah, it's kind of what's so. But I think that's what I think about it, because like when you bring up what I can't. We've been on this for an hour, but I can't. Whenever we were talking about appealing to conservatives, because it's not like a revelation to most people that the average person is getting a shit deal in the United States. And conservatives say all the time the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. They know this. So bringing this up to them, of course they'll agree with you. But when you get to the solutions and you bring up that, well, we have all these billion-dollar corporations getting, Elon Musk is getting like $3 billion a year in subsidies. Jeff Bezos gets billions of dollars. The Walton family gets billions of dollars. They never bitch about that. Never. At all.
They're the job creators.
Exactly. Yeah. So like people who are working or creating jobs, well, they're the right. They know what to do with that money. The black people don't.
And when they get to that point where they're a billionaire,
yep.
they're only temporarily embarrassed, they don't want to have to pay those taxes either. Why should the government take my hard-earned money that they don't currently take because I live in a single wide? But, in a couple of years, I got a 5-year plan. I'm going to have, 5 yachts and a private plane. And, I don't want the government taking my money then. It's the American dream. Anybody can bootstrap their way there as long as, you're born into a family that can give you a $100 million loan to start your first business as a tax shelter.
I swear to God we'll end after this one, but I wanted to ask you guys this question here, because when you mentioned that, the temporary embarrassed millionaire thing, this reminded me of 1,000 conversations I've had with people I've known over the years. And I'll sit them down. Well, when I was younger, it doesn't happen too much now that I'm older, but people in their 20s, whatever, you're talking to them, and they've read Millionaire Mindset, and they have this like you said 5-year plan, and it's like, yeah, I'm going to be a millionaire. I'm going to work. And I heard these so many times that toward the end I was like, listen, you're a sucker. I hate to tell this to you, like, you are a fucking sucker. Like the odds of you being a millionaire are infinitesimal, and you can work hard and you can sacrifice and you can get really lucky. Maybe you'll be a millionaire. You won't, though. It's not going to happen. But like, people are fooled by this absurdity. And there was this sociologist, I think, Alexis de Tocqueville, when he came to the United States, one thing back in the 1700s and 1800s, I think, he didn't like the idea of us not having an aristocracy. And it's not for the reason that you're thinking, probably, because what he didn't like was in old Europe, whenever a peasant walked past a duke or something, he would address him as, your excellency, your highness, your grace, whatever. And he would bow, he would tip his cap. Like, both people knew exactly where they stood in the social order. The peasant knew he didn't have power over a thing. The duke knew he controlled everything. He could do whatever he wanted. And they acknowledged the social distance. In the United States, however, you have this a CEO, a business magnate, and he goes across a regular dude. They both call each other sir. They both tip their caps. And he's like, I don't like that, because it gives the false illusion that there was like, oh, I can be him one day. No, you fucking can't. And it's still like that. De Tocqueville was right on the money, because it was a great way to fool people into the clowns you see who are reading Millionaire Mindset thinking, yeah, if I just, put my nose down and stick to it, I can end up like Jeff Bezos. No, sorry, it's not going to happen. You're a sucker.
Which is actually ironic, because you see that all the time with like the fucking like tech CEOs. They wear jeans, they wear a t-shirt.
Yep.
The one example of a rich person who very clearly dives into the aristocracy of golden laden everything is Donald motherfucking Trump. He's like the only rich guy I know who fucking like wears being rich on his sleeve like that. It's embarrassing.
He's in the worst way. Like, does he not know a tailor? Like, none of his shit fits.
It's the worst. It's incredible. I'm not like a fashion person, but oh my god, he dresses like a child.
You can't find a person who can get your tie from here to here like that. Like, I've got clothes that fit better. I don't have a fucking tailor, but like I can find something that my tie.
You also have a normal shaped body.
Good point. Yeah, Trump. It would be hard for Trump to look good in any suit, but he just looks so goddamn awful. And like Mar-a-Lago, if you ever seen pictures of Mar-a-Lago, how it's just like emblazoned with gold everything. It's just I hate it. And all right, I swear we're gonna get off here, but I wanted to show this when you brought up Donald Trump, because Trump he doesn't really have shame. That's his superpower, right? And I was thinking his hair too. I hate the way his hair looks. And I was watching, oh great, my computer's frozen now, but American Psycho. And I was like, oh, that's what Trump looks like. Trump looks like the guys in American Psycho, the way he has his hair and everything. And I can pull it up here. Yeah, so this is when I saw this, I was like, oh my God, this down to the way he wears his suits and to, that weird tuft of hair in the back that nobody wears their hair like that other than him and like Trump Jr. He's stuck in 1980 something. He's down to the fashion and all that.
Like Donald Trump peaked in the 80s, right?
Yeah.
That was his time. That was his, Al Bundy.
It's 5 touchdowns in one game. Love a good Al Bundy reference. I love that.
So that's why he's still there. It's like he would fit right in Hot Tub Time Machine, right?
He
like
would.
that's what he's trying to go back to, and that makes perfect sense to me. But people who dress like rich people in just a cartoonish way, Roger Stone. Can we just
Oh God, Roger Stone, my God. I can't believe the guy's still alive. Like he's just pure evil. You know what though? I like that Roger Stone admits he's evil.
He's comically like he is a cartoon character villain he dresses like a cartoon. He's got a tramp stamp of fucking Nixon.
I was good, yep.
Cartoon villain evil, and he owns it. But
he does.
He literally looks like the villain in Roger Rabbit.
He listened to Bill and Roger Rabbit. He said, I do like that Roger Stone is evil, knows he's evil, and enjoys it. I do appreciate that, honestly. It's like Trump is. I do respect that. He's a self-aware man. All right.
By the way, before we move on to a real topic,
every time.
No, this is just real quick. I just want to point out that Ben also plays Xbox all day.
Xbox, there you go. Yeah.
The 17-year-old shocked the world. He plays Xbox all day.
Ben, play as much as you can now, buddy. Yes. Just,
not only do you get less time to do it, but it gets less enjoyable too.
You get worse.
I really hate that. Yeah,
you get worse. I remember when Fortnite was big, like 5-6 years ago. I tried playing Fortnite. I got my shit rocked over. I was, oh yeah, I've aged out of this. I can't compete. I picked up Dragon Ball the other day. It's like, yeah, no, not happening. I can't keep up with anybody.
Man, I've barely played video games in years, and I used to really enjoy them. And then, like, my wife and I on our Sunday fun days, we started doing we played through all the Spyros and stuff. Just went back to childhood nostalgia, and now we've ran out of those childhood nostalgia games that we both played that feels good. And I'm kind of bummed about it. And now that Grand Theft Auto is coming out, I'm gonna have to go buy a PlayStation 5 solely for Grand Theft Auto. I'm wondering though if I'm gonna get so invested in it the way I used to and stay up till 2 a.m, playing Grand Theft Auto. I don't know. It's weird. It's hard to get into it at this point in my life. But
those were the days. All right, what do we want to get to, John? Which one of these we want to cover here?
I think we should talk about our good friend Mr. Trump and certain statements that he's made over the course of his presidency.
I like it.
It seems like you're pulling something up here. Do you want to get us?
Yeah, I'll get it. Yeah, I'll get us started on that one. Oh, this one is. I do like. Before I get into it, we'll probably cover it, but I do like how people are acting like this is. Oh my God, this is what's going to take down Trump. That is kind of funny that people are acting that way. All right, so I'm sure you all remember John Kelly. I made a mistake in a video I made about him a while ago or yesterday, where I said he was Donald Trump's original chief of staff. He wasn't. He wasn't his original chief. It was Reince Priebus. I had forgotten. He was Trump's chief of staff for 4 months. I didn't remember that at all, which is weird because I always joke about Reince Priebus that he has the name of a Star Wars character. That doesn't sound like an actual person's name. Some mother named their child Reince Priebus, and Newt Gingrich. Republicans have fake people that they have. But all right, so Trump's former chief of staff says he fits the fascist definition and prefers a dictator approach. John Kelly, the retired Marine general who was Trump's White House chief of staff, entered the 2024 fray in stunning fashion in a series of interviews published Tuesday saying the former president fits into the general definition of fascist. He goes on to tell this story where Trump mentions that he wishes his generals were like the German generals, and which kind of set off alarm bells for John Kelly. And then he says, "Do you mean Bismarck's generals?" And for those of you who aren't history buff, he's talking about Otto von Bismarck, who was the general during World War I. He's like, "I'm sure that's what he means." And then
wait, no, TJ, I want to elaborate on this. Because he also gave an interview to the Atlantic, and the way he phrased it in the interview to the Atlantic was hilarious, because he said, according to Baker and Glaser, Kelly explained to Trump that damn it, I forget what. God damn it! I should. Okay. So he said, "Do you mean Bismarck's generals?" He went on, "I mean, I knew he didn't know who Bismarck was or about the Franco-Prussian War."
Yeah,
he's like trying to help him out.
He's like, or the Franco-Prussian War. I said, "Do you mean the Kaiser?" Oh, I meant the Kaiser for World War I. Do you mean the Kaiser?
I'm an idiot. I'm sorry, TJ.
No, it's all right. No, it's fine.
This is bad podcasting.
That's fine. It's all right.
You can spank me later.
No, I'm sure this my incompetent co-host TJ didn't think I'd get the whole quote in here. So all right. So the Kaiser's World War I. My mistake. Do you mean the Kaiser's general? Surely you can't mean Hitler's generals. And he said, yeah, Hitler's generals. I explained to him that Rommel had to commit suicide or taking part in a plot against Hitler. Trump's campaign denied the exchange. This is absolutely false. President Trump never said this. The campaign preferred. So I love this. I love this so much. And I wish I had brought this clip too. There was a Fox News, Fox and Friends clip where Brian Kilmeade was trying to explain rationalize Trump saying this. And he's like, well, Trump had a lot of generals who didn't like him. He had a lot of generals who didn't want to do what he said. So he just wanted his generals to fall in line. And maybe he didn't realize that a lot of the generals during World War II were Nazis. It's like, buddy, what's going on? Well, that's. I'm trying to find the clip. That's exactly what he said. But what were your thoughts, John? We'll go to you first.
So there is a lot to this. And did the story you read also cover the fucking Mexican?
Oh, no, not that one. No, but you can bring that one up too. Yeah. Vanessa Guillen, I think her name.
You said something there, TJ, where you're like, people think this is going to be the thing that takes them down. And I agree with you. It's not, but it should be. And this is one of those things where, like, I get in fights with liberals a lot, where they're like, oh, well, it's the media's fault. And I'm like, but like, Democrats are the one who are supposed to win the election. They should manipulate the media to get them to do what they want. However, this is one of those cases where I'm just like, why the fuck aren't we talking about this more? Like, how do we live in a sane world? I don't care. It aligns both economic and moral interests. If you got into journalism to do good journalism and improve the world, well, when the guy running for president is saying, I want to be Hitler. I want to be a dictator on day one. I wish my generals are like Hitler's generals. And it's so very clear what's going on here. Any morality left in these journalists should be talking about this all the fucking time. And then on the other side of the aisle, this is good fucking shit. People love Hitler, and not like love, but they love talking about the guy. Like, are you telling me that there's not like demand for more content about Trump saying he wants to be Hitler? Like, that shit, like these interviews call him like wildfire. How can Joe Biden's age catch that level of wildfire? But this can't. I'm very confused. The Democrats should be doing more to push it, but I'm very confused how it's not a natural lightning rod that gets 24/7 discussion. It is actually like, I'm like, what the fuck are you doing?
I think a lot of it has to do with the way that people on the left and people on the right consume media. And people on the left do not gravitate towards those sensationalized headlines and just wild, over-the-top reality TV show bullshit that has become the entire Republican. All the Republican Party is right now is a reality TV show, right?
It is.
It's and you have to have an IQ below this line to ride that ride. Like, you can't peddle the same type of media narrative to the same people and get the same reaction. And I think that is really the media as a whole has really just started pandering to that lowest common denominator of clicks and sensationalized headlines that goes for those people, and those people do not react the same to criticisms of Trump as they do to, you know, everything else. And I think that that's just part of the problem. And we all get our people on the left don't have this is sorry, I'm ADHDing really hard here. But when you were talking about like how much Trump changed the Republican Party in such a short period of time, that can't happen on the left because you don't have the left coalescing around fucking anything. Like, we are our own worst enemy on the left. We will fight. We will agree on 99.9% of things, and we'll take 1%. And if we're not on the same thing, we will be at each other's throats. We see it right now with Palestine and that issue, right? Like, people are willing to let Trump win because they refuse to vote for Harris because they are not perfect on this one particular issue. And in the same way, people on the left consume, their media from so many different avenues and so many different sources. Like, it's only boomers who watch CNN, right? Like, there's nobody's watching cable news on either side anymore. It's only like a lot of us get our news from TikTok or a Facebook feed or wherever you're getting your news from. It's so spread out, and they don't have the ability to have that captive audience like they do on the right, where there's just a few outlets and they just suction cup to those, and they can just run these sensationalized headlines like Joe Biden's old, and they eat this shit up. And so I think that they run for.
But okay, I want to pause you there because Joe Biden's old played on all of the left-wing networks too, like everyone in the media,
including ours.
Including ours. That played everywhere. Like that level of media fire. It wasn't left, right. It was Fox News was talking about it. MSNBC was talking about it. TikTok was talking about it. Your fucking neighborhood kids' high school newspaper was talking about it.
Okay,
it was possible to cause that media shitstorm with that. So why was it possible with that, but not the dude running for president?
The reason it won't work is because we require our news stories to be tethered in reality, and there's no. So, like, Joe Biden was old, and so we were going to talk about it. It was real, but they spent
Trump does want to be Hitler. Like, it is
no, but they don't care about that. But like the way the news spreads on the right, like, you know, the Haitians eating cats shit and stuff like that. Like, most of it's just bullshit. It's all made up. But the Hitler thing, I mean, they could talk about it, but you know what? Speaking of which, I'll go ahead and put up. This is how Fox News is covering it. Go ahead, Updrag.
But also, we all already know that. Like it is not a surprise to any of us that Trump was like, yeah, Hitler's generals sound great. I want to be like Kim Jong-un. We wrote each other love letters. Like, that should have been, and all this shit got covered. And we are desensitized to it. On the left, like, we don't fucking. It's not a surprise. I read that headline. I'm like, yeah, that tracks.
Exactly. No shock there at all.
So why are they going to report it like that when it's not going to get the click? I'm just going to read that and be like, yeah, I don't even need to fact check this because it's true enough. Even if he didn't actually say it, it's so close to reality that it doesn't matter anymore. You know, and that's part of the thing, and that's part of the Trump success. Is it's wore us all out. It has desensitized us to the ridiculousness, and the left-wing media did this at the beginning of his presidency, right? They covered him constantly with every asinine and ridiculous thing he said, and the grab him by the pussy thing got tons of attention, and all of the ridiculous shit he said got tons and tons of attention, and then we all got numb to it, and that's why they've moved on from it. That's why they don't cover it on the left, because, again, Did the Hitler comment surprise you even a little bit, tiny little bit?
So, no, it didn't. But I will say that the Atlantic article I read was a very, very good article. I read the whole goddamn. I don't read a lot of full fucking articles from like political magazines. It's a very good article, and the thing that struck me about it was how sober it was. They didn't cover it in the sensational way that, like we were talking about, they sensationalized the shit out of Trump's first term. The Atlantic article was a very sober, very like well-written piece of journalism that was engaging and captivating to someone who is of the college-educated variety, right? And so like that, I know it can play with us because it played with me, and I know that it's also can be sensational. But like one of the reasons that the Joe Biden thing was old too. People have been writing articles about Joe Biden being old
his entire presidency. But there was a media shitstorm when there was a coalescing event, and it just sucked all the oxygen out of Joe Biden's presidency. And I don't understand why. There was a clear coordinated campaign to make that happen. I don't understand why, like, what forces prevent it, because it can't be economic. I know that this shit's getting clicks.
No, I'll tell you what it is. There's still people who can be swayed by stuff on the left. There's not on the right. Like who are you going by putting that coordinated effort out there? Who are you swaying on the right? No.
Yeah. And see, an example, I think, John, of when there was a coordinated effort, I would say, was during Trump's trials, especially his conviction. I feel like for like 3 weeks, the news was nothing but Trump's convictions and how bad this was and how this is embarrassing for the nation and stuff. I feel like it was just as strong as the Biden being old one. That didn't matter. Right? It just doesn't matter.
Here's the thing, TJ, and okay, this is all speculation. Like, this isn't like, I'm not like basing this on any evidence, but there is a counter argument to there's it's a witch hunt. It's there is a defense to the trials, right? That he's being politically persecuted.
Yeah.
Like, that isn't going to sway anyone on the right. And I think one of the reasons, and I'll put in some evidence here. One of the reasons you're seeing Kamala Harris perform better with older people than any Democrat before her is because of this shit. Like, my grandfather, now he's always been a Democrat, but he fucking hates Trump, and he brings up Hitler all the time. He's an old fucking Jewish man who lived through World War II. Like, he fucking hates him because he directly sees it. It's so clear as day to him, because that's what when he was my age, it's all that he fucking heard, And so, like, that shit plays with the older people, and I think it's very clear and obvious that is the reason that so many older people have jumped ship and are going to vote for Kamala Harris. And so, like, I think that the reason that the Trump trial shit doesn't work is there's another side of this story to tell. Like, there's the Republicans are like, yeah, it's a political witch hunt. If they keep just getting hit with sober recollections of how Trump is saying these things about Hitler, there's no lily pad they can jump to. All they can jump to is, no, he didn't. But if everyone is saying that, yes, he did,
they don't live in that reality.
Like, I'm not talking hardcore Republicans. I'm talking non-voters in the middle who are like,
I don't know about that, John. I don't know about that, John.
Have you met any of them?
I don't know about that, man.
I think the non-voters in the middle is almost a non-existent demographic.
We agree.
No, non-vote, non-voters is the biggest voting bloc in this country.
No, but like people who are going to vote, though. Like, I don't think that by now
people to vote. I think that this is something that will get normal people out of bed to go vote. I genuinely do, because it is one of the few things that we all agree on in America: Hitler bad. Like, one of the very few things.
Yeah, I know.
Well, okay. So most of us agree on.
It's like a shockingly. Well, I want to talk about how they are covering conservative media. This is a Fox News clip. What is this? Fox and Friends and Brian Kilmeade.
But the bottom line is, if you read H.R. McMaster's book, who is critical of President Trump in some of it and not in others, he talks about how Madison Kelly didn't like the president. And they didn't think he deserved the job, or they didn't think he was worthy of the job. And they went out of his way to make sure a lot of the things they asked him to do that they didn't like never got done. McMaster would be frustrated because he couldn't get their attention. And he would say, it's not your job to rein in the president. It's your job to do what the president wants. And then you factor in the fact that he runs his own company, coming from the business world, the first one we've ever had. It's not even a public company. And then he obviously has frustration. And I could absolutely see him go, now, you know what? It would be great to have German generals that actually do what we asked them to do, knowing that's a third, maybe not fully being cognizant of the third rail of German generals were Nazis and whatever. But he was frustrated with the slowdown of commands.
That ain't got pretty rough there. That ain't got pretty rough with him. It's just like, well, maybe you didn't know the German,
But he clearly said no Hitler. Like, in the audience, like, no, I want Hitler's dudes.
Right? It's like he didn't know Hitler's generals were Nazis.
The ones that were like, yeah, I'll do whatever you want because otherwise I will get executed. I want to say, though, we just talk about the Fox and Friends set for a minute and how it looks like that, like, one time you awkwardly went on, like, just like a friend's new couple double date thing that wasn't working out, and you're just like sitting on the couch, like trying to figure out what the fuck to talk about, and then it like emotionally and traumatically scars you from like social interactions for years afterwards. It always looks like that. Like one guy, hands on his knees, other guy like this, you know, like it's the most awkward fucking layout. I feel like I'm watching Napoleon Dynamite. I'm so uncomfortable, and I don't understand why they continue with this set.
I've never thought about this. I genuinely have never thought about this, but you are so right.
That's so good.
I as someone who has like, you know, been in like broadcast positions like back in college and shit, like I would have fucking hated this set. I would have like slapped the producer if they told me go sit on a couch.
Yeah.
Oddly kind of facing each other, but not. Like put your fucking crotch right in front of the camera for everyone to see. This is terrible television. I've never even considered that.
Man, that's such a good observation. You're right. It's just, and especially like even like because you can't sit too close, but you don't want to sit too far. And you got to look at the camera and look at your and it's just
you can't lean too far forward. You have to awkwardly kind of just like position yourself.
Like, that would be a terrible setup for a show. Like it'd be better like if it was just they were just like a giant loop and they were facing each other, but they can't even do that. And it does give off energy. Like you went over to your buddy's house and like his dad and older sister happen to be there too, and you're just sitting there just awkwardly having conversation, and just like I know Patty looks so strange and weird, but
TJ, do you know the guy on the left? Do you know his name?
I don't know his name. No.
He
Did you just ask the black guy if you knew the black guy's name? Really?
That
was bad.
Of course, yeah.
I'll take that one, guys. I was put under on anesthesia earlier. It's the drugs are still wearing off. I'm sorry, but his look cracks me up. He always looks like he wants to murder the other.
You know,
even in that clip, he's just looking at him like.
So that guy, there was a funny clip of him like looking at the camera. It was during a Trump said something, and he looked at the camera all weird and everything. But you know who's even like I feel even more. Steve Doocy, actually. Steve Doocy is always, this guy right here, he in the yellow tie, he is always saying something like moderately sane. Like, I don't know. I don't think that Democrats actually want to execute children after they're born. And the other two are always. Like, Steve Doocy is slowly losing his patience with Fox. He must be under contract and he can't leave or something because for the last like 2 years, he's always starting fights with the other ones. He's not a liberal by any definition, but he is the most sane conservative on Fox News remaining. At least saying something like that. Oh, boy. Okay, so.
Wait. Because I also want to mention the Mexicans.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, the Mexican comment.
Because the Hitler, honestly, like the Hitler thing, like that was like, you're right. Like I was like unsurprised by that. When I read the story about the Mexican soldier who died, I was not surprised that Trump would behave that way, but it was like, oh, that's a really funny fucking story. So the what went down is there was this woman. What was her name? TJ
Vanessa Guillen.
Vanessa Guillen, and she was this Mexican soldier. She was killed on an army base in Texas, I think, or she's killed off the base or something like that. And it was like a big thing in the news. Her family went to visit the White House, and Trump promised them, "I will pay for it. I will pay for everything personally." And he made a big ado about saying, "Oh no, this can't come from public funds. This has to come from me." He said, quote, "If I can help out with the funeral, I'll help. I'll help you with that." He said, "I'll help you out financially. I'll help you." Natalie Quam, the family's attorney, responded, "I think the military will be taking care of it." Trump replied, "Good. They'll do a military. That's good. If you need help, I'll help you out." Later, a reporter covering the meeting asked Trump, have you offered to do that for other families before?" Trump responded, I have. Personally, I have to do it personally. It can't do it through the government. The reporter then asked, "So you've written checks to help other families before this?" Trump returned to the family, still present, said, I have, because some families need help. Maybe you don't need help some from a financial standpoint. I have no idea. I just think it's a horrific thing that happened. And if you did need help, I'll be there to help you. So very clearly, emphatically saying he wants to personally help them. Cannot be misinterpreted. Like in no possible way.
It sounded like you were having a stroke there for a little bit. So
That's how one of the funnest like party tricks I have is just to read Trump. Like it like without the Trump accent, just reading it sober is the funniest thing in the entire world because the sentences don't make any sense if you don't hear them in Trump's voice. But anyway,
you need the hand gestures too, and the butthole mouth.
Yeah, and the butthole mouth. Yep. So the later he gets the bill, right? He asked if they'd received the bill to one of his aides, and they said yes, we received the bill. The funeral cost $60,000. Trump became angry. Quote: "It doesn't cost $60,000 to bury a fucking Mexican." and he told him to not pay it. The family has since confirmed that he never paid the fucking bill. This whole big thing, and it highlighted so many things about Donald Trump that just like we know to be true, but damn, to hear them just said so plainly, like the fucking like, oh, it doesn't cost that much to bury a fucking Mexican. If it was my kid, I guarantee you, his kid would have a more expensive funeral than $60,000. But a fucking Mexican, no, that's ridiculous. He got pissed they were ripping him off. How dare the poors actually request that much money from him? How dare they, those fucking Mexicans?
Yeah, that's just not surprising with Trump there. It's just that it's another of those things too that yeah, of course Trump said that. Of course he did. I don't know. This is like I don't know who's going to win this election, but the fact that it's still possible that Trump can win. You know, John, when you mentioned what's it off your wagon, the grabbing by the pussy. I can't remember which one of you mentioned it, the grabbing by the pussy thing. If you guys remember, the Republicans abandoned Trump after that. For like the next week, every Republican said, this is an outrage. I can no longer support him. I remember Tommy fucking Lauren posted a tweet saying, I support Mike Pence or something. It's just everyone just scattered. But then the same thing happened on January 6th. Republicans spoke out against it. They all said, this is awful. They said, this is the worst thing I've ever seen. I can't believe that we're going to impeach Donald Trump. Within a couple of weeks, they realized didn't change a fucking thing. The voters loved it. And like the problem with the Republican Party is Republican voters. People don't like saying this. Like they don't point this out. The problem with the Republican parties is the fact that it's run by Republican voters. And they put the politicians in. They love Trump and they haven't backed off from it. That's the problem. We blame the politicians. We blame the punditry. Go ahead.
Well, first, I want to tie this back to January 6th and the like you said, you read the sobering article about Trump admiring Hitler and wanting Hitler's generals, and like that's the thing is like January 6th is one of the most sobering moments in U.S. history, and if that didn't sell you on getting out to vote and who you're going to vote for, nothing's going.
I don't think anything will. I agree. I don't think anything will.
But
I think that's because it happened 4 years ago. I think if January 6th happened today, it would be a much different story. Like I think they've just had time to shine that turd.
I don't know.
I don't know. It's like
it's a thing. Like it happened 4 years ago. Great. We remember 9/11. How many fucking years later?
Yeah, I just like
fucking God. Like it's you know. That was, I mean, obviously, as many people didn't die, thank God. You know, very few people died by comparison of what could have happened.
It wasn't bad enough. That was the problem.
And maybe that's what it was. But I mean, that was the closest thing we've had since the Civil War to, you know, an overthrow of the government and insurrection, and that's a very sobering moment. And I don't know who is left on the fence that gives a shit about whatever Trump's going to say or do or anything that isn't going to be convinced at that point that happened. You know, ex-girlfriends hang on to shit longer than apparently people have the attention span to 4 years is too long to hang on to fucking January 6th. So that what were you just talking about now? You were talking.
I said, well, we were talking about the burial, January 6th, and Trump's, Republican voters were,
Republican voters are the problem, and I agree with that, but I disagree. The Republican Party actively cultivated their voter base. They played this line, and Mitch McConnell. I blame Mitch McConnell and Newt Gingrich for kind of being the architects of this. Is we can play with Frankenstein's monster. We can build this monster a little bit to gain a little bit more power with the fucking lunatics, right?
Right.
We can pander to them just a little bit, but we're in control. We control the narrative. We control the situation. We can build this monster to win these elections and put the people in power we want to be in power. And that monster became self-aware and got away from them. And so, yeah, Republican voters are the problem now, but they're the problem now because the Republican Party actively built that monster and made them the problem.
All right. Well, yeah, this
But
is
they
true.
have no choice.
Like what else? Yeah, you're right. Yeah, they had to go.
They had a choice at a certain point. They lost that choice because the monster.
The choice was make the monster or lose. Like, yes, that's a choice. Like, it's a moral choice, correct? But to a politician,
John's talking about the foundational choice that like Newt Gingrich made, and like back in the '90s and stuff that we're going to court.
Make the monster or lose. That was maybe make the monster or delay your goals and your efforts, and maybe lose this specific election or this specific policy platform. But it wasn't. It was still playing politics as politics. You're going to have that back and forth swing. And the '90s was the perfect time to move the Overton window because they moved it to the right like crazy in the fucking '90s.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so if they wanted to, but see, like the problem they had was their policies were all about benefiting rich people, and you're never going to get support. That's never going to happen if that's your entire platform. So they had to go with the cultural shit.
Ronald Reagan, what the hell are you talking about?
Exactly. Ronald Reagan is a good example of this. Like Ronald Reagan teamed up with Jerry Falwell with a moral majority.
Their darling president. Darling president, 2 terms. Obviously, his entire platform was benefiting the rich people.
No. His entire platform was demonizing black people and racism and saying that this is a Carter. Like the thing that Reagan did that was so good was that Carter was they were faced with the problem in the late '70s with stagflation and the energy crisis and stuff, and Carter made the mistake of saying, listen, here's what we need to do. We need to tighten our belts. We need to turn down our thermostats. No, fuck that. Americans don't want to hear that. What they want to hear is an optimistic message. And Reagan comes out and says, no, actually, this is a great nation. Fuck tightening our belts. We are the best thing that's been made on earth. And by the way, it's black people's fault that we're suffering. So hitting the cultural shit was the only way that you could push forward the actual rich people stuff. And like that's what I meant, that there is no universe in which they're like, hey, I'm just going to do these rich people policies. And what you need to do is get the cultural shit. But I agree completely that it didn't take long for the inmates to run the asylum. And I remember when it started happening, it was like the middle of the George W. Bush administration.
Tea Party.
Yes, it was you started seeing these folks like Rick Santorum and Mike Huckabee. Yeah, Michelle Bachmann. Oh my God. Yeah. And I was like, oh, these are the same people I remember seeing in church. These are the exact same folks. And now they weren't just they weren't content with school board elections and showing a vote. Now they've been raising this their entire lives, and they started running. And then Sarah Palin really is what tipped it over, and they felt emboldened and confident, and they've been in charge of the party ever since. So I don't know. Like I still put it. Yeah, the voters were cultivated for it, but it's still them. It's not like anyone tricked them into having these beliefs. They already had them. They just ended up gaining a lot of power.
The Republican Party exploited those beliefs, and that's how they built that monster. The Republican Party did not have to go with the Southern strategy. The Republican Party did not have to go with all of Reagan's welfare queen, just anti every single minority possible strategy. Although Reagan was pro-immigration.
Yeah, I know, the amnesty. Yeah, I know. Yeah.
But they didn't have to. It was the easiest path. It was the instant gratification path forward for the Republican Party. And now the results, the ramifications of that instant gratification are coming due. They're paying the piper, and that's why the inmates are running the asylum. They didn't have to do that. Like they made choice.
They would need to be something other than the Republican Party. They would have to be a completely different party if they did something else, I think.
This is where I disagree with you, is that demographically, they have hitched their wagon for decades to white America.
And as TJ was saying, back with Reagan, it was the black people. Now it's the fucking brown people. With Bush, it was the fucking Muslims. It really doesn't matter who it is. It's just not the white people are causing all of the problems in America. And the issue, if you're a Republican in 2016, you just went through fucking 8 very successful years of a black Democrat as president, who was fucking adored by the country. If Obama could have run for a 3rd term, he would have won it, and he would have won a 4th term too, you know? And you're sitting there and you're like, oh shit, it's just going to get worse from here. The country is getting less white. In 20 years, white people are going to be not the minority, but only a plurality. Either you just fundamentally change the Republican Party and they're in, like, as TJ said, it would be ship of Theseus. It would not be the same party. Or you stoke up the fucking white people.
Well,
it's your only choice.
Yeah, by 2008, that ship had sailed. But I'm saying the fundamental choice was still the Republican Party's choice to go down that road, to exploit this avenue and to build this monster. Like, they built this monster. And the Republican Party, they so actively, because the Republican Party was the socially progressive party for the first half of its existence, right? They made the conscious effort to shift from being the socially progressive civil rights party to the party of Southern white racists. Like, they actively made that decision because their economic policy sucked, right? Like, their economic policies have always sucked. There's never been a time in history that Republicans.
This is true.
So, but
the ending slavery one was pretty good. They started.
Well, no, they had like they were a hard money party, weren't they? Like back in the day, like they didn't want to. Yeah, so that's what he's talking about. That
they've never had, like, they've always been the economically conservative party. Conservative economics is an oxymoron. Like, there's no, you cannot be conservatively economically prosperous. It just doesn't work. And that's where they always were. So they always had shitty economic policy, and that was fine until you get into a difficult economic situation like a recession. And then people start to stop caring so much about the social aspects. And as time marches on, the social aspects generally, as we used to believe, the long arm of history arches towards justice, and we're maybe eating our words on that now. But they came through, and the Democratic Party started shifting on the social issues, where it wasn't a hard edge, like, if you are a racist motherfucker, you have to be a Democrat, and vice versa, because you had Northern Democrats that just didn't care that much about the civil rights issues. And that's where the party switch started to come in. And the Republican Party made the conscious effort of, rather than getting better and just competing on their economic policy and keeping the socially progressive policy, they were going to court the people who were disenfranchised by the Democratic Party that told them, you know what, we don't have time for your racist Jim Crow bullshit because it's holding all of us back economically, and we just cannot fit this into a viable political policy stance. We just can't anymore. So either get on board or go fuck yourself. We don't care, Strom. We don't care what you're doing. And that's when the Republican Party was like, okay, we're losing ground. We are going to absorb that ideology of hating everyone other than straight white people.
Yeah.
They made that choice. And this is the monster that created from it. You still can't, it still goes back to them allowing those people a platform, and those people have a platform, and now they feel emboldened to do that publicly because the Republican Party put them on that platform, and they have run away with it and gained control of these actions.
Very, very true. We're running out of time here. John, we got to go to the North Korea one. You got that one?
The title of our
yeah, no, that's what we have to cover. It's the title of the show. That's what we have to. Now, I don't know a whole lot about this. This actually, I don't think I actually knew until you told me. So,
I can cover this. So there's an interesting thing going on in the world right now that Americans are just fucking ignoring. And like, we know that Russia's invaded Ukraine, and we know like Israel and Iran are at war, but there is a very significant movement within the world moving away from American hegemony. Yeah, whatever the fuck. American hegemony. And it involves Russia, Iran, Brazil, India, China, North Korea, all of the things, or most of the countries that we either see as the bad guy or virtually irrelevant, they're starting to form stronger coalitions. And we're seeing this play out in Ukraine right now, where North Korea has now militarily allied with Russia and is sending troops over to Ukraine to fight for them. And in exchange, Russia is giving them diplomatic cover in the UN and blocking sanctions against North Korea that they otherwise would have faced. And it's working out pretty well for them. I don't know if anyone noticed, but that war is still fucking going on.
I know somehow,
and it's because of this. And you know, we had the BRICS summit this week where all of these world leaders got together. India and China made a lot of progress in nullifying border disputes that they've had for decades. These countries that aren't in the American, Western European hegemony. I cannot say the word, TJ.
Hegemony.
The powers that be structure that we have are actually making some progress. And I don't want to come and say, hey, there's good guys and bad guys here. There are good people and bad people and gray people in every part of this situation. But it should be a concern to America as a country, whether you view us as the good guys or the bad guys, that these countries are kind of teaming up, because for decades it's been, we just kind of say how things go and things go that way. And other countries in the world are now kind of starting to come together and fight that notion. And again, that there's not a moral statement being made there, but it's probably the most important thing that's going on right now. It's one of those things that, you know, if it doesn't work, we'll forget about it. But if it does work, you know, history textbooks will teach our grandkids about it, you know. And it's a very interesting story. And you said, TJ, that you hadn't heard much about it. Had you not heard much about, like, specifically North Korea sending troops over to Ukraine, or have you not heard much about this more overarching geopolitical alliance that's being made? The BRICS, I don't know if I said that, but the BRICS is what it's called: Brazil, Russia, India, China. I forget what S is.
I don't know. I know the S. But I knew about Brazil, Saudi Arabia, maybe.
No, I don't think so.
Because I remember that.
I'm pretty sure it is Saudi Arabia.
Is it Saudi Arabia?
Because
they're kind of more allied with us now, though. So
yeah, the reason I thought it was Saudi Arabia was because I saw that Shang-Chi. Ben said it was Shang-Chi. That's funny. I'm sorry, but was that I knew that Brazil and Russia and I guess China were trying to come up with a currency to rival the petrodollar. I remember seeing something about that. That's the only reason I guess Saudi Arabia. And for those of you who don't know that the petrodollar, it's South Africa. The petrodollar is right now. If you want to buy oil from OPEC, you have to use U.S. dollars. It's one of the things that strengthens our economy the most. And so I had heard about that, but I had not heard that North Korea was sending troops to the border with Ukraine with Russia. And honestly, it surprised me because, look, I got to be honest here. How good do you think North Korean soldiers actually are? I'm just gonna point North Korea hasn't fought a war in 75 years. The last time they fought a war, that army's not going to be shit. And plus, all their equipment is ancient Soviet equipment anyway, and it's one of the poorest nations. I mean, a body is a body, I guess, but I was surprised to hear that for several reasons. But I don't know. We'll see what happened. Have you heard about it, Off Dragon?
Before you go, I have to say Ben is correct. It's South Africa.
South Africa? Okay, all right, cool.
Yeah. And it was originally BRIC, and then South Africa joined, and it became BRIC.
Jesus, South Africa? Oh, that seems strange.
They've expanded since then, though. They're up to but anyway, go ahead.
No, it's old news a little bit. This happened months ago when
I had no idea.
North Korea sent the troops over to Russia, and they're like, it's like a training alliance thing. I don't think North Korean troops are actually fighting. But it makes total sense. Again,
they are now. They are fighting in Ukraine now.
Oh, are they actually?
At least
fighting?
According to Ukraine, they are. And according to multiple sources, they're denying.
Okay. I knew that they were being sent over to Russia as part of this new little agreement thing that they had and whatever. And they were saying it was going to be a training exercise, kind of like before Russia invaded Ukraine. It was going to be just a training exercise on the border type bullshit. whether they're fighting or not is irrelevant. It makes perfect sense. North Korea is desperate for allies, right? Like they sort of have China, they sort of kind of have Iran, but they don't really have any true allies. Russia is in a desperate position for a whole bunch of reasons. And then you said North Korea hasn't fought a war in 70 plus years. This is the perfect time to send 3,000 as a microcosm of their force, right? You send those people over there to start learning real world battle tactics and how those are applied. It's what Russia's been doing in Syria for years. Obviously, they didn't take very good notes because they're fucking horrible. That's what they've been doing. That's the whole reason that Russia and we were in Syria. It was old Cold War shit where we're showing off our hardware and learning modern battle tactics adjacent to, our near peer or our peer adversaries. And this is what I would assume North Korea is trying to do at the moment, is get some real world on the ground experience in a real conflict without the repercussions of starting a war.
And they're also the other important thing there is the diplomatic aspect of this, where Russia is now covering for them in the UN, which, by the way, veto power in the UN. We've done a lot of dumb things in human history. Don't get me wrong. A lot of just blatantly dumb things. But who the fuck thought that was a good idea? It infuriates me.
It's the whole purpose of the UN. It's America's show. Love it or leave it is what the veto power thing has come to be now. And I don't understand.
It's really dumb. It's like, what's the point? Like, what is the point if you're going to give the nuclear superpowers veto power? But either way, no, it is. And Ben asked a good question here. Do you think they could get Chinese soldiers? So, like, the China of it all is really the important thing, because Russia isn't a scary force, as you alluded to. They're struggling to beat Ukraine, which, like, come on, bro.
Real chump shit, Russia. Come on. Real chump
like,
shit.
Come on, you gotta. If anything, this war has shown just how little fear.
They're losing to a 7 seed right now. It's sad.
I am genuinely surprised that none of Putin's adjacent oligarchs have put some lead in his skull at this point and moved on from this, because he's clearly lost the plot and has gone. He's hanging on to something that he has no way out of now, and they don't want nuclear war. Like the people around him don't want that. That's not good for their bottom line, and that's really all. And the fact that nobody has JFK'd him at this point is beyond me. I don't understand.
I think Putin's just kind of good at his job. As a former Soviet spy, I think he's just like a little bit better at assassinations than everyone else around him. That would be my guess, honestly, because you're right. It does seem to be, but also I don't know,
I'm sorry, John. I'm just thinking,
not committed at this point.
Putin is good at this. He walks into a room. He's like, I know an assassination plot. When I see one, I'm heading out, folks. I'm not going to be back. I can just see him doing that. Yes.
I'm sure he has a whole fucking Secret Service spy network, counterintelligence, that. I think that's the simplest Occam's razor explanation. Is he's just good at not getting assassinated. He's been doing this shit for decades.
I saw a picture. I saw a picture. It was from 95 or something, and it showed Brezhnev retiring and handing it off to Putin. I was like, Putin has been in power since the fucking 90s. I forgot about that he's been around forever. So yeah, he clearly knows how to keep.
Donald Trump wasn't even on television yet.
Yeah, wild. Yeah, he knows how to stay alive. Got credit where credit's due, but yeah, not going out on top with embarrassing himself with the whole Ukraine thing. Well, with China, would you guys? I haven't really thought about this, but what does Russia have to offer to China? Why would China's what do we got? Yeah, so North Korea would have
from a good relationship with the U.S. And that's why I always say China would if China decided if there was a war over Taiwan or whatever, that would be a scary war. That's the only war that would actually be scary for the United States of America. But it's not going to happen because the economic ties between China
neither of us
and America are stronger than any two nations on the face of the earth.
Like both countries would be cutting their nose off to spite their face in
Right.
the war. So China has no real interest in military force. They have a military, but like they don't need it. They have other ways to win, and they're doing it very successfully.
Yeah.
Every idiot. Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, it's a great point. Everybody's afraid of China, and like
Ah.
China's economic foundation is on the United States' shoulders. And like, if we wanted to fuck them over, we would pull the economic rug out from under them. But obviously, that would fuck us as well. And that's why it's such a weird dichotomy, because on an ideological and political level, we don't get along. We are enemies.
Yeah.
We're like truly enemies. But then on an economic level, like if either of us want to survive, we need each other.
They
And-
literally peg their currency to the U.S. dollar. Like,
Yeah, it's-
for-
This is why every idiot conservative that I talk to, they'll say the same thing. They're like, well, the red Chinese, they got this massive army and they could come take us over at any minute. So it's never going to happen for the same reasons you guys have articulated. It would fuck over not only themselves and us. Honestly, the global economy would collapse. Like you would be the king of a pile of ashes if you let this happen. There's no way they would do something like that.
Like, even let's just pretend too, like on some weird, we got the wrong people, because you get dumb enough people in power, like you get a Donald Trump in power, and then you get somebody equally Donald Trumpy in power in China, and they go head to head, and they don't like understand the economic repercussions of this, and get into a conflict. China has a lot of people, but they don't have their hardware is nowhere near on par with anything that we have. I mean, they're doing the same shit China's doing, where they're like, they have their fifth generation or sixth generation or whatever generation fighters, that they have one or two of them that barely fly, and they bring them out for air shows and demonstrations, and they have no idea how to use any of that hardware, even if they did have it in a practical sense. Because the United States, there's one thing we do well, and that's just blowing up brown people.
Yep,
We're
yep.
super good at it, and we've put all of our money into doing that, and we've put all of our money into doing that as efficiently and effectively as possible. And you cannot play in that playground and expect to compete. And we're seeing that so much with Russia right now. Like, they've failed on a tactical level. It's their equipment's trash anyway, but they're failing on a tactical level because they don't understand the things that the United States spends all of its time focusing on. There's no military. You take nukes out of the equation, there's no military that is going to go toe to toe with us.
No. And
that is assuming that the fight isn't here. Like, it's assuming we're fighting a war somewhere else. The idea that even if every single other country in the entire world teamed up to fight the United States of America, they would not be able to take us over. We are the most geographically defensed country ever.
Yep.
It's literally fucking narrow passageway, mountain range, ocean, tundra. There's no getting to us. It's impossible. And nuclear war can just end the world.
Nuclear,
sure.
yeah.
Other than that, it's mutually assured destruction to go to war in the United States of America, which is why it will never fucking happen. And we should stop pretending that it could.
And what they like to bring up too is how concerned they are about the national debt, supposedly, and they'll always say, "Well, look how much debt." You'll hear a conservative host say this all the time. Said, a lot of our national debt is owed to China. What if the Chinese call up that debt? What if they do it? But what? That's not how debts work. Like, it's not how it's like. Oh well, we want it all right now. And
oh no, go ahead.
Oh yeah, and so. If this, because the implication is, since we owe them money, they're our boss. Like, if you owe someone money, they have something over on you. It's actually the other way around. Like, they have every incentive to make sure our economy is strong, so they actually get that money back. It's perfect. And this near bipolar, it's still kind of monopolar, the superpower structure in the world, but it's becoming more multipolar. It's the most stable that you can actually have it. And so we've kind of gotten to that point with China where it's good for the economy to have these tensions and alliances and the dependence upon these two other nations, because it helps stop wars from happening.
Yeah, and to that point too, which China doesn't own nearly as much U.S. debt as people think it does. Like, the majority of the United States debt is owned by the United States.
It's us.
Yeah. We own all of the debt. It's a fraction. I don't know. I don't have it pulled up right now, but I know for a fact the
You're
largest
right.
U.S. debt is owned by American citizens and American companies. But let's pretend that China does own some substantial amount of U.S. debt and decides to call it in. Like that's a thing they could do, which they can't. But they're like, yeah, we want this paid right now. There's two things we can do. We just be like, no. Like we could literally just say no, and there's nothing they can do about it. Or we can say okay, and we print a bunch of money and devalue the shit out of the dollar, which would suck.
Yeah.
But then that would also make all of the debt they called in worthless, or it would devalue
Worth a lot less. Yeah.
They have no ability to do it, no incentive to do it. There's just no, and they don't have the leverage that people think they have because they don't own nearly as much debt as people think they own. It's asinine from every angle.
It's this
Japan
neo
actually
Cold War
owns more than
fantasy.
China. I didn't realize that.
Who does?
Japan is the
Ah.
number one foreign holder of American debt.
Yep.
Yeah.
Didn't know that. John, I wanted to say you have trouble saying hegemony. The word I have trouble saying is statistically. I fuck that word up. It's
Impressive.
hard for me to say statistically. Like any of those double T's.
Well,
kind
that
of,
one's
kind of-
easy for me, TJ.
Oh,
Statistically.
oh, I'm sorry.
I've been struggling with anonymity lately. That one has been kicking my ass.
There we go. Okay, it's been a good show, guys. It's been a good show.
Such a great show, man. Wow.
It was a very I like when we have the conversational shows. It's going to be kind of a bitch to cut up into.
It's your week,
different
John. Have
segments.
fun.
But let's wrap this up here. As we said before, so
I do want to say I do love that we covered almost one of the topics that we
We
were
know we
going.
covered two. We covered
Number
two.
What even were the other topics, TJ?
The other topics were Kamala Harris and struggling with independence. And we had and Kamala Harris with trans folks. The question she had about the trans
that's
folks.
right,
That was the
that's
other
right,
one.
yeah.
That's right.
We
Yeah.
were literally yesterday. We were like, it's gonna be a rough one. It's kind of a slow note.
Yeah.
News week. Like, there's not any like really really good topics that are obvious. So let's wrap this up here.
Let's do it.
All right, it's that time, the end of the episode, the time where you're supposed to like, subscribe, leave a comment, share this with your friends, tell people how much you love me, TJ, and of course, our wonderful guest this week, Off Jawagon. How about if you like him, how about Off Jawagon? Tell people where they can find you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys for having me. And I'm on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram. Off Jawagon. It's just OFF_JAWAGGON. You can also watch our podcast. We have one of our own as well that's called Let Them Eat Toast. You can find that everywhere you get your podcast, as well as in video form on the Off Jawagon YouTube channel. I appreciate you guys letting me plug that. I also sell merch, offjawagon.com. Just if you Google Off Jawagon, you'll find me. That's how it works.
Hey, we appreciate it, man. Thank you so much for watching, folks. Statistically, you guys are probably our favorite guest. And although we do value the anonymity of our followers and the people who watch our show, we want you to do your best to contribute to the show and help to bring, left-wing hegemony to YouTube. And so do your best, folks. We'll catch you next time. Later, folks. All right.